No one in the paddock saw it coming. Just days before the most demanding race of the season, McLaren boss Andrea Stella confirmed that Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris will be free to run completely independent strategies in Singapore. No team orders, no coordination, just raw racing. What sounded like a show of confidence quickly felt like a gamble that could shatter McLaren's title campaign. If you love F1 without the noise, hit subscribe and let's get into it. The decision hit the paddock like a lightning bolt. McLaren are just a handful of points from the top in the constructors' fight, and Piastri leads the drivers' standings by 25. Yet Stella's call means the garages will effectively compete against each other, with Verstappen closing in after back-to-back wins in Monza and Baku. History tells us that freedom inside a title-contending team often comes with a cost. Just ask Mercedes in 2016 or McLaren in 2007. What makes this twist so compelling is how ordinary it looked at first. Two drivers chasing victory in their own way. But at Marina Bay, where one mistimed pit stop can rewrite an entire championship, that freedom could just as easily become fragmentation. From the moment the first green light flickered at Marina Bay, McLaren's freedom experiment was tested under brutal reality. The humidity was suffocating, the track surface slick with dust, and the margin for error almost non-existent. Piastri entered FP1 inside the top 5, Norris a fraction behind in 6th, yet neither garage looked comfortable. The radio chatter told the story. Tire degradation worse than expected, brake temperatures spiking, and strategy models split right down the middle. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso shocked everyone by topping the timesheets. Charles Leclerc shattered him in second, and Verstappen, armed with Red Bull's upgraded front ring, was only 3/10 behind. The message was clear. McLaren weren't alone in the fight, and every strategic call would carry double weight. For Stella, the dilemma is simple but deadly. A one-stop race secures track position, but risks a late race collapse if a safety car appears. A two-stop offers flexibility and fresh tires, but can trap a driver behind slower traffic. In Singapore, that's a nightmare. The data from FP1 proved how close the field truly is. Less than 4/10 separated the top 7 cars. Freedom in these conditions isn't empowerment, it's exposure. And both McLaren drivers now stand alone, each one a potential winner or victim. In pure numbers, McLaren's gamble borders on madness. The team sits just 11 points behind Red Bull in the constructors' fight, and Oscar Piastri leads the drivers' table by 25 points over Max Verstappen. The Singapore weekend was supposed to consolidate that advantage. Instead, it could blow the fight wide open. If Piastri's side of the garage nails the call and wins, McLaren could leave Marina Bay with one hand on both titles. But if Norris's alternative strategy backfires, or vice versa, the team risks splitting points and momentum at the worst possible time. Singapore's brutal heat and near-certain safety cars mean fortune can swing in seconds. History offers cruel reminders. Ferrari's lost crown in 2010, Mercedes' implosion in 2016, McLaren's own internal war in 2007. Every team that let its drivers chase separate strategies eventually paid the price. Right now, the maths is simple but terrifying. One safety car, one mistimed pit stop, or one bold tire call could swing the entire championship. McLaren are walking a tightrope, and Verstappen is waiting underneath, ready to catch whatever or whoever falls first. The reaction split the paddock right down the middle. In the UK, pundits called it unnecessary risk, the kind of decision that wins applause in theory but loses championships in reality. For British media, Stella's refusal to unify strategy feels like McLaren handing away control just when they finally hold the upper hand. Lando Norris, after all, has waited years for a genuine title shot. To let chaos decide it seems reckless. Across Australia, though, the mood is different. Piastri's rise has become a point of national pride, and Stella's decision is seen as a statement of faith, proof that McLaren won't play politics. Aussie fans remember the long years when Mark Webber fought team orders and favoritism. For them, equal footing isn't a risk, it's a redemption. Inside McLaren, however, the reality is far more fragile. Engineers now work with different tire models, different fuel predictions, different pit windows, and secrecy creeps in fast. Stella insists fairness is the foundation of his leadership, but even he knows equality has a cost. When both sides of the garage are chasing the same dream, every detail, every lap delta, every fuel trim becomes a weapon. What started as fairness could easily turn to fracture, and in the heat of Singapore, fracture spreads fast. For Oscar Piastri, this isn't just another weekend. It's the hardest test of his young career. Leading the championship at 25, he should be protected by his team, shielded from the storm. Instead, Andrea Stella's call has left him exposed, carrying the weight of leadership alone. Every lap now feels like a statement, calm precision or the crack of pressure. The memory of Baku still lingers, the false start, the crash, the lost points that almost broke his rhythm. Singapore will test not just his speed, but his composure. Lando Norris, meanwhile, has waited too long for moments like this. Last season's near misses hardened him. He knows this circuit suits his style, fast, aggressive, relentless in rhythm. But freedom cuts both ways. With no team orders, there are no excuses left. If Piastri beats him now, it won't be strategy, it will be superiority. Behind the smiles, both garages know the truth. McLaren's internal rivalry is no longer a subplot, it's the main story. Piastri fights to prove he can lead. Norris fights to prove it's still his team. And somewhere in the shadows, Verstappen waits, knowing he doesn't need to destroy McLaren, he only needs to let them destroy themselves. In F1, data is power, and power divides. Former Red Bull and Aston Martin engineer Dan Fallows once warned that when two garages start running their own strategies, the danger isn't on track, it's in the garage. Engineers are as competitive as drivers, he said. When one side discovers a tire sweet spot or a cooling tweak, they guard it like treasure. Information stops flowing. Collaboration turns into suspicion. McLaren now stand right on that fault line. Piastri's camp has focused on race-long balance, while Norris's engineers are chasing qualifying performance. Both sides claim they're still sharing data, but insiders whisper about setup sheets that don't quite match and post-session debriefings that feel colder by the day. For Stella, this is the real nightmare. Strategy differences are easy to explain. A loss of trust isn't. Once the two garages begin protecting their own ideas, development slows, mistakes multiply, and even simple calls like when to pit become political. Singapore's heat may push the drivers to their limits, but the real stress is technical, invisible, and growing inside McLaren's walls. Unity, once fractured, is almost impossible to rebuild. By the time FP2 ended, one truth was clear: Singapore doesn't forgive indecision. The FIA's new pit lane speed trial has cut average stops by up to 6 seconds, suddenly making two-stop strategies viable again. Add in the heat hazard declaration, forcing teams to choose between cooling vests or ballast penalties, and every equation McLaren built over the last month has been thrown out of the window. Under the lights, the circuit becomes a pressure cooker. Safety cars are almost guaranteed. There's been one in 13 of the last 14 races here, and each one can flip the race upside down. A perfectly timed stop could crown a champion. A single lap's hesitation could cost both titles. Meanwhile, Red Bull's upgrades have transformed Verstappen's car into a weapon again. His pace on long runs looked ominously consistent, the kind that wins races even without pole. And he knows the golden rule of Singapore: stay close, wait for chaos, strike when McLaren stumbles. For Piastri and Norris, this isn't just about who's faster. It's about who dares to call their own shot when everything is breaking apart. And for McLaren, every second of that freedom now feels like borrowed time. As the lights of Marina Bay flicker against the humid night air, McLaren's decision stands as the boldest and riskiest of the season. Andrea Stella has drawn a line between control and chaos, between faith in his drivers and fear of losing everything. If this works, he'll be remembered as the man who trusted equality and conquered Formula One's toughest stage. But if it fails, McLaren will have engineered their own downfall. For Piastri, every corner will feel heavier than usual, a reminder that the title fight now depends on his judgment alone. For Norris, meanwhile,
This is the moment that could define his legacy. Beat Piastri on equal terms, and he becomes McLaren's leader. Fall short, and the shadow of his younger teammate will grow long. Verstappen, watching from behind, understands the moment perfectly. He's seen empires crumble before. He knows how small cracks become collapses. By the time the checkered flag falls, we'll know whether Andrea Stella's gamble was brilliance or hubris, and whether freedom really does make a team stronger. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and catch our next episode in the McLaren Civil War series, where we'll break down how this decision plays out under the lights of Singapore, and whether McLaren's unity survives the night.